Hi, this is Carol Westcott from the Voice Within studio. Today's technique tidbit is working on staccato. Staccato is very short notes. If I were playing the piano, staccato would sound like this. Very abrupt cutoffs. So with singing, staccato can be very useful as a technical tool. You really only see staccato singing in music with mainly classical singing. That's not 100%, but it's turning out that many popular music singers aren't working on staccato, and there's a lot of value to it. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to do this sound and what we're going to use it for. So with staccato, it's a very abrupt start-stop to the pitch. So we've got to have this buildup of air pressure behind the vocal folds. They vibrate for a brief moment and then they stop. My favorite way to do staccato really is tied to just human nature, which is laughing. So I like to feel like I'm doing little H's, little hee hee hoo hoo ha ha, little H's, because if we don't put the H's in front, then we end up with a little bit of a little squeaky noise. So for example, a staccato exercise that I use in the lessons would be pretty fast, going hee 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 woo 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 woo. So you have to just put those baby H's. We don't want them to be horribly audible. We don't want to be hee 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 hee. You don't want to put too much air through because then you don't get enough tone. It's just enough H again, feeling just like you're laughing. Hee 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 woo 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 woo. So then we have an exercise to practice with staccato. It's that one, and there'll be some other ones we can add. Then the value of staccato for us is that if you can go pretty fast, if you can take this pattern like super fast, that develops flexibility. And flexibility helps us with our ability to do runs. So we can just use this as a training tool. It's also great for getting you up into your upper register without you getting too worried about it. So people can get up pretty high in their voice with this staccato exercise, particularly if you just feel that laughing feeling, because that releases tension, and the laughing actually engages the breath exactly the way it needs to be without you having to overthink it. The other valuable tool with staccato is that if you're singing your song and you're trying, you're at home, you're trying to practice, and you're a little worried, like, am I in tune? Am I a little out of tune? Am I flat? Am I really being accurate with my pitches? If you practice your song with staccato notes, then you really hear it. You will totally hear if you're off. So if you were just doing, let's think, let's do happy birthday, why not? So if you're singing along going, happy birthday to you, and you're like, gee, I'm practicing all by myself, I don't know if I'm really in tune, you can go doot or deet. You want to put a little T at the end to really make it staccato, and you can go doot 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 doot, or deet 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 deet. It depends on where you are in your range, what's going to feel better. So say I'm going deet 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 deet, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I can hear that that's in tune. Like if I was a little off, deet 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 deet, like, oh my gosh, I can hear that. So really good self-monitoring practicing tools. So you can go deet 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 deet, and then right back sing the real words, happy birthday to you, and you can go back to singing legato, which we'll talk about in another video. You can go back to legato after you've practiced the staccato, and it's going to be much more in tune. So you can take short phrases, staccato, back to the real words, back and forth, and then that way you can practice really confidently on your own. And again, staccato helps to develop flexibility. So you will have some exercises as homework to practice this skill. This was Technique Tidbit, Staccato Exercises. Thank you.